up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here with Judd Zulgad as we wind down, Judd, the final walk-up to the preseason opener here. This camp that's the longest training camp in a lot of years for the Vikings actually is beginning to click forward a little bit here. And as you're coming down to Friday's opener against San Francisco, it's been interesting to watch on both sides of the ball, but particularly on offense, how things have developed, because the offense yesterday was the worst they've been by far in all of camp. Sounds like Bill Musgrave got a little bit creative, dressed those guys down in the meeting room. They heard from some different people. They came out with a lot better tempo today. Christian Ponder's efficiency wasn't great, but both the first and second units scored in the 2-minute drill. They showed some signs of progress, but this is sort of how it's going to be. You can't ride the highs and lows too much, the ebbs and flows, particularly with a young offense, a young quarterback. It's just going to kind of be like that. And that's really going to be maybe the way that it goes this season.
Exactly. I think that what we're going to see from the Vikings on a week-to-week basis, we just don't know, right? Because with Christian Ponder, he's a young quarterback. We think he's improving, but it's funny. Rick Spielman talks about the fact that they're very pleased with Christian Ponder, his development so far in camp. But you watch Ponder on a day-to-day basis, and you could literally drive yourself crazy. The worst thing might be to be in your shoes and actually have to watch these guys every day, because really, what do you take from it? One day, it's pretty good. The next, it's terrible. The next, it's good. The next, it's better than that. And I think that's going to be the flow of this season, both offensively and defensively for this team, that on a game-to-game, week-to-week basis, you aren't going to know what to expect. But really, at the end of the day, that's sort of how Rick Spielman has built things up. I mean, that's going to be the story of this season. And that's why I think this team's going to win about 4 or 5 games, because the consistency just isn't going to be there, Tom.
Really, with Christian Ponder, I think even on yesterday when the offense struggled so badly, a lot of that wasn't on Ponder. There were protection issues. There were guys dropping balls. There was a lot of miscommunication with the receivers, just balls that weren't exactly. It was very clear the receivers weren't on the same page, and they were trying to roll some different guys in, prepare for Jerome Simpson's absence. I actually think the body of Ponder's work, and you can't even compare it to last year. Saying he's better than last year is not saying anything, because he had no idea what he was doing last year. But you have seen some progress in terms of, it seems as though when he's going through his progressions, that's been improved. His body language has been improved on the field. He's doing some different things. He missed some throws. In the scrimmage on Saturday night, he misses the one post to Jerome Simpson. And the thing is, throughout the rest of that practice, I think Christian Ponder was impressive. And everybody talked highly of his performance. But in a regular season NFL game, missing a 50-yard post to a receiver who's left wide open is the difference between a winning performance and a losing performance. Those are the throws that Christian Ponder's going to have to hit. He's not going to make all of them, but I think it's the little things, the things that may not show up just on a day-to-day basis when you're looking at, well, what were his passing numbers today? I add them up every day because I think it's interesting, and because they do want to become more efficient, but there's other aspects to that as well.
And Ponder, too, the biggest thing for him is 2 things to me. Confidence in games. He's got to maintain his confidence. If something goes wrong, he can't let that affect him. And thinking. He cannot afford to think as much as he did last year. When was Christian Ponder at his best last year? Early on, because he didn't think about things. The more he thought about things, the worse things got for him.
He thought about things, but he also, one of the things he was thinking was, I'm going to get killed back here. Well, I got a hip pointer. I can barely move.
But he also, you could see him last year. He was thinking way too much, and I think he needs to do less of that this year. The one thing the Vikings can't afford is dumb mental mistakes, right? Michael Jenkins today ran the wrong route on Ponder. Ponder throws the ball. Jenkins is nowhere near the football. That's the type of thing that if these guys are going to win, let's say 6 games, they can't afford. They're not good enough. They cannot afford dumb mental mistakes.
But a lot of that, too, comes down to whether or not he's in rhythm with his receivers. Things like Jenkins, it's not that Jenkins didn't know the play. It's that against that particular coverage, Ponder's looking at a corner play and inside leverage, so he throws the back shoulder there. He doesn't throw the fade. Well, Jenkins decides to run the go, even though that's completely covered. Those are the issues, too. They're just little things within the offense. We've seen him miss a few throws where it seems as though he's putting it on the spot he expects that receiver to be. The guy's not there. It's not always, people will say, well, it's an inaccurate pass. You're missing those passes. But a lot of it comes down to both sides of that and where the ball is. And this is not in any way just a blind defense of Christian Ponder. He's made some bad throws, too. He's made some bad decisions. He made one bad decision through an interception yesterday. Those are the things he's got to be able to keep out. But I'm really interested to see now as we go through the preseason, number one, at what point do they take Jerome Simpson out of the mix? Because they're going to have to do that and work some of these other guys. And also just who makes plays? Because really, there's only 2 receiver spots that are taken now. With Childs down, the only guys who we know are going to make the team absolutely are Percy Harvin and probably Jarius Wright, because he's a 4th-round pick, and because Rick Spielman ain't having both of his 4th-round picks from Arkansas not make the team.
Oh, no way, no way. This draft class, everyone from this draft class probably makes this team or ends up on the practice squad.
Oh, yeah.
Because they think they can bring them back. But the thing about Jerome Simpson is, what I'm curious about is, when do you take him out? Because after those 3 games that he sits out in the regular season, he's going to come back as a primary guy on the field. He's going to be a very important part of this offense. He's new to the system. If Jerome Simpson had been suspended 3 games and had, let's say, played 2 seasons with the Vikings, it wouldn't be a big deal. He would know the system. I'm really, really curious to see how the coaching staff handles this now, because Jerome Simpson's a guy they need to get enough time to, but like you said, they also need to have it prepared so those first 3 games, guys are set to go. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how they handle the preseason with Simpson when he plays and when they finally do pull back on him.
And you can't lose those first couple of games. That's the other thing. And that's where there's one argument that you've really got to figure out this position, because it can't just be, well, Simpson will be back, we're developing this offense, he's going to be a big part of it, he'll get back in week 3. If you're 0-3, your season's over. I don't think on paper, from everybody I've talked to in the league, they're not a playoff team on paper, but the NFL has a way of, if you get off to a good start, the ball can start rolling down the hill and you have guys gaining confidence. You lose to Jacksonville and or Indianapolis, there's only one way that it's going to go from there.
1-1. They're going to go 1-1 in those 2 games. I almost guarantee it. I think they'll beat Jacksonville, and I bet they lose at Indianapolis. But here's the problem, too. If you want to talk about those first 3 or 4 games, if they do get off to a bad start, you got a real problem, too, because you got guys like Antoine Winfield and Jared Allen right now sort of going along with the message. But if you get off to a bad start, you know what happens with veterans, especially 6-10, 3-13, and then let's say 1-3. All of a sudden, those guys start to say, "Here we go again." If these guys get off to a bad start, it could be really ugly, really fast.
We've talked a lot about the offense. On the defense, we don't know a whole lot yet. Number one, the depth chart is set up based on experience, and you've still got Harrison Smith working with the 2s, and you've still got even deeper. I don't know what that is.
Oh, those are crickets buzzing up there. This is out. We're outdoors in Mankato, folks. This is nature at its best.
Number 2, we still haven't seen how things are going to work with Jasper Brinkley being back out there, with Troy Guion at the nose tackle position, and things farther down the depth chart too. Who's going to be the 3rd cornerback? Who's going to be the 4th cornerback? A lot of questions unanswered, and also just what's the scheme going to look like. I tend to think it's going to be similar to what they've run in the past, but I also have a strong suspicion when they're talking about putting guys in positions to succeed, you could see them playing less 2-deep coverage than they have in the past, just because they've got one safety in Jamarcus Sanford who they really like near the line of scrimmage.
What do you think, Tom, as far as the defense goes too? Because ordinarily you bring in a new defensive coordinator, what do? You go vanilla all training camp. You basically, during preseason games I should say, you don't use that defense because you don't want to tip your hand. But in this case, given what the Vikings have, do you do that, or are you forced to basically install your defense? Because you need guys. These guys are so young, too. You need guys to play it. So do the Vikings pull back?
I asked that to Alan Williams, and he said, we're not going to try to trick anybody. We're not holding anything back. We're going to play our defense. And I think part of that is because...
You believe it?
Yeah, I do, actually, because I think, number one, a big part of it, the biggest part of like these tweaks that they're talking about is simply getting guys to play the correct techniques, which they didn't last season. Being able to, if you're going to play cover 2, you have to have your corners jamming at the line. You can't get 5-yard cushions.
How did Puckett allow these guys, and Les Frazier too, to get away with what they did last year? If you talk to guys now...
It went on too long.
But if you talk to guys now, they basically didn't play their technique. They didn't do any of the little things right. It's funny, if you talk to guys now about what happened with this defense last year, it's really bad. I mean,
part of it's personnel too. You were throwing Benny Sapp out there at corner, and Benny Sapp doesn't trust that he can run.
But early on, it sounds like too. Even in training camp,
E.J. Henderson was playing your Mike linebacker and couldn't cover the deep middle. I mean, those are big problems in a Tampa 2 scheme. So I think that a big part of the preseason is you've got to be able to get these guys playing the scheme, figure out who's going to and who's not, who's going to play the techniques they're being asked to. But also, you're not game planning in the preseason. You're not planning based on the 49ers. Offense. You're just going out there and you're going to play your base and your nickel defense.
But do you play that defense? So what? So how far do you take it?
Well, I think you're going to run your basic blitzes. Eventually, the things that you put on tape by week 1, they're out there. If you're worried about surprising the Jacksonville Jaguars, I wouldn't be worried about surprising Blaine Gabbert. I would just blitz the hell out of him and make him have to make decisions. But you have to figure out who can play the scheme and who can't, because as much as we look at this depth chart now and everything looks about as we expected, other than Harrison Smith not being in there, after this game, there could be some pieces moving around. Speaking
of that, Harrison Smith, put him at starting safety now. Seriously,
He's gotten a few reps the past 3 days.
I realize that, but let's get over this whole thing of whatever they're doing with him, make him your starting safety. He looks, and here's the thing is, I like this kid just on the sole fact that he's really confident. He's trying sort of to be a rookie, he's trying to be quiet right now, but you can tell by next year he's going to be all over the field and be really vocal. I like him. Make him your starting safety now. Let's get past this BS.
How about this theory? Maybe they got 3 starting safeties. not in the base defense, but maybe they have three guys who all play based on their skill sets. Mr. Raymond is going to be a lot better in coverage than he is in terms of being a tackler
and he was
in
corner
run
in college a little bit, right?
He played some corner in college.
Yep.
You could use him potentially as an outside corner, but I think also against those tight ends,
okay.
they feel like maybe that guy is going to be able to do that. Jamarcus Sanford, you don't want playing in a lot of space, but he's decent near the line. Harrison Smith, you can play all over. What if you have different packages and these different guys are in? That would not surprise me at all, and that could be one of those things when they're talking about tweaks to put guys in better positions to do what they do well. That could be it.
If you do that, Jamarcus Sanford's almost a hybrid linebacker because he plays like a linebacker.
Well, you don't want him 20 yards from the line of scrimmage.
No.
But maybe in this scheme, you don't have guys 20 yards from the line of scrimmage as much.
Very, very intriguing.
A lot of things that we'll begin to find out perhaps on Friday. He's Judd. I'm Tom. Full Vikings coverage, as always, at 1500ESPN.com. He didn't wear the sunglasses this time.
Hold on a second here. Let's see. It's too dark out right now. There we go.
Much
like
creepier.
That look? Yeah, it is sort of creepy, isn't it? Hold on. I'm going to put him back on my Favre. There's my Favre look.
Can we end this now? I'm getting eaten alive.
Hey, there's some cricket skin.
See ya.